Good afternoon, everybody, and thank you so much, Cynthia, for that kind introduction. Again, welcome to SBA Small Business Administration Celebration of Black History Month. We are so excited to have each and every one of you join us today. We have a dynamic group of small businesses that we're going to get to hear from very shortly. But as we reflect on Black History Month, it's really a time that we remember the contributions of small business owners throughout our history. At the same time, we're recognizing the resilience of today's entrepreneurs, what they've endured over the last 10 to 11 months as we've endured the COVID-19 pandemic. But last but certainly not least, we really want to reaffirm that entrepreneurship spirit for future generations and that next generation of business owners. So today we are going to hear from several business owners that are going to really share their experience with us. We have Tim Porter, Necole Parker, Tisa Clark, and Diane Lewis Jackson, who are going to be sharing their stories and some of their experiences with us. At this time, we also have the great pleasure of having Congressman Dwight Evans join us today. Congressman Evans represents Pennsylvania's 3rd Congressional District, which includes Northwest and West Philadelphia, and parts of North, South, and Center City, Philadelphia. He was first elected in a special election in November of 2016. Before that, he served as state representative for 36 years and earned a reputation as a pragmatic leader who knows how to put policy above politics and make ideas matter. And a part of Black History Month, he has made history back in 1990 when he became the first African-American chairman of the House Appropriations Committee, a position he held for 2 decades. With that, please join me in the honor of welcoming Congressman Dwight Evans. Congressman Evans, the floor is yours, sir. Let's see if he may be having some technical difficulties. Give him a second. Why don't we give Congressman Evans a few more minutes to join us? In the meantime, I think it'll be great if we just dive right in and start our conversation with our great American small business heroes and sheroes that we have from the Black business community today. And so I'm going to ask each of them to kind of introduce themselves, and we will start with Timothy Porter.
Yes, thank you. Thank you guys so much for putting this event on today, and thank you guys so much for having me. So I'm Tim Porter. I'm the founder and CEO of Appddiction Studio. Appddiction Studio, we're SBA 8A, service-disabled veteran-owned small business located in San Antonio, Texas. We've been in business for about 10 years now, and our expertise is we do a lot of agile software development, mobile application development. The big shift now in organizations is what we call DevSecOps. And then we do a lot of agile and software development training. And then the other arm of Appddiction Studio, we have a healthcare staffing arm where we have over 200 healthcare team members. So that's kind of what Appddiction Studio does. And I like to thank the SBA because we was recently recognized as the 2020 National Small Business Person of the Year as well. So thank you guys so much for having me.
Great, thank you, Tim, and welcome. Next, we'll have Diana Lewis Jackson.
Good afternoon, and thank you for having me. My name is Diana Lewis Jackson. I am the President and CEO of Action Facilities Management. We are a proactive government and commercial facility services company that is headquartered in Morgantown, West Virginia, and we have an office in DC. We operate in 11 states and also the District of Columbia. Our expertise lies in areas of building operations and maintenance, complete janitorial services, administrative support, security guard, and emergency management services. We are a former graduate of the SBA's 8A Business Development Program, and recently we too were honored to be and were selected as SBA's 2020 National Prime Contractor of the Year. So thank you.
Congratulations and welcome. Next, we have Necole Parker.
Good afternoon, and thank you, SBA, for inviting me to this panel. I apologize again for the technical difficulties as I am dialing in by phone, but we're going to no different than COVID. We're going to pivot to make this a successful panel today. I am Necole Parker. I'm the principal and CEO of the ELOCEN Group. We are a program and project management provider in the built environment. We are a 2018 graduate of the SBA 8A program. Currently have a 8A joint venture with a new up and rising 8A company out of Atlanta. We also are a WOSB women-owned small business, hold 2 GSA schedules and 14 additional certifications. And we are also a 2015 awardee of the SBA Washington, D.C. office and 3rd runner-up. So I am excited to share some of my success today as we pivot and make adjustments, because as an entrepreneur, anything goes. So I look forward to today.
Thank you, Necole. Well said. Tisa Clark, you're next.
Thank you so much, Victor. I appreciate the honor to be among, I see some great leaders on this panel. I am Tisa J.D. Clark, President and CEO of J.D. Clark Professional Services. We provide construction, consulting, and real estate services to the affordable housing, government housing agencies, financial institutions, and public works. We are certified MBE, SDB, and EWSB. We are also a graduate of the 2016 Emerging Leaders Initiative, which currently is open for anyone that's looking to take advantage of an awesome program. And we're just so excited to be here, again, to be on this platform with some amazing leaders that are around the region. Our core vision is that we transform communities through social impact. Thank you.
Wow, thank you, Tisa, and thanks to all of our panelists. What a dynamic group of obviously award-winning panelists and award-winning African-American small businesses right here in our very own community. Why don't we start with some questions, and we'll kind of go around and kind of have a dialogue about some of the great things that you've been doing and how you've persevered and moved from kind of this, what I call surviving mode to thriving mode. So my first question is, the SBA has assisted millions of small businesses with economic relief during this pandemic. Tell us about the federal aid efforts, whether it was the Paycheck Protection Program, Economic Injury Disaster Loan, or even the EIDL advance that you've accessed and how they benefited your small business. So why don't we start with you, Tim?
Okay, thank you. Yeah, so prior to COVID, SBA has a lot of opportunities and a lot of different ways to help entrepreneurs and help small business, and I've definitely taken advantage of a lot of those. Since COVID, though, and with, as a small business entrepreneur trying to, transition and pivot during the pandemic, we were very blessed to be able to, we submitted on the first PPP funding, and we were able to receive funding. And that allowed us to, maintain our staff, because initially, as the pandemic started, progressing, we were looking at our the difference between essential and non-essential personnel. So the PPP, the first round of the PPP funding allowed us to make sure that we didn't have to reduce any staff, and we were able to keep everyone on full time.
Wow, that's great. That's awesome. Diana.
Well, like so many businesses, we were adversely impacted when the pandemic shutdown happened in late March of 2020. We actually applied for and were approved for the EIDL advance and the Paycheck Protection Program. And we used the EIDL advance because we had a significant reduction in staff at 2 of our locations at the very beginning of the pandemic. And then we realized in April these employees would be below the threshold to keep their health benefits intact. So we used the money from the EIDL advance to keep the benefits in place for the month of April, and to make sure, especially during a health crisis, that the employees would be able to maintain their health insurance. So that's what the EIDL advance was used for. And then we also, at that time, because it was kind of scary at that time, we applied for the PPP program, and we actually didn't receive the money from that program until May of 2020. But by that time, we had been able to keep the majority of our staff employed, about 90% of our staff, and because we were considered essential personnel. And so based upon the 90% working, we basically gave the money back, so in hopes that that money that we were approved for would help other small businesses. But the good thing from our perspective is that we had at least that safety net when we had no idea what was going to happen. So that was very helpful for us.
That's I mean, that's so many business owners who are balancing taking care of themselves, taking care of their family, their customers, their, clients, and their employees, of course, valuable assets. So it's really good that you were able to navigate those waters. Necole, what about your experience?
Yes, very, very similar to both Tim and Diane. We were able to take advantage of the PPP loan directly. I mean, we have two categories of employees. So initially with our stop, it was really for the federal government understanding what stop work orders meant, if they were permanent, if they were temporary, and if they were partial work or no work at all. And so with that, with the PPP, our number one concern was to make sure that the employees continue to get paid, that the ones that were with our 35% reduction, the ones that were laid off temporarily, that we were also able to keep their benefits intact, because that was very important for us, especially with Mother Nature bringing COVID on. And then on our construction jobs, we also had an increase in insurance, company insurance from workers' comp, on people that worked from home. We had cyber increase because people went from working at work to teleworking, and so our cyber increase. And so we were able to take advantage of the PPP to help with some of that.
Great. And then Tisa, last but certainly not least.
Thank you so much. So we, in turn, we've been dubbed by the chamber that I currently chair, Prince George's Chamber of Commerce, as the one who got every dollar that was moving. So, it started off with the EIDL advance that came just in time for me to make some vendor payments. We do a lot of work in the community. As a Section 3 contractor, we hire underserved and emerging businesses. And so they can't necessarily wait the standard 30 days or 60 days to get paid. And so the EIDL advance came just in time to make some vendor payments, followed by the Paycheck Protection Funds hitting so that I could, in fact, keep all of my employees and continue to make payroll, followed by a bridge loan that I was able to secure through my financial institution until my EIDL loan was funded. And so those three things kind of made it through for me to get through. And most recently, we have been funded for the second round of PPP. And as mentioned earlier, as the board chair, I found myself filling a role of advocacy for other small businesses. And so I stood up my consulting arm to assist a lot of those independents and sole proprietors to get access to the programming. So since it was available to them as well, a lot of them were not aware. A lot of them needed technical assistance. So I found myself from a standpoint of advocacy, helping them also leverage the various EIDL and PPP programming.
Awesome. I believe the Congressman has been able to join us. And so if so, we would welcome your comments, sir. And we'll pause a moment and check and see if you are on the phone or available by video. Congressman Evans, let's see if give him a couple seconds here.
Victor, I think we're still having technical difficulties. I'm checking with his office to see if they're on.
Not a problem. Not a problem. we'll go ahead to the next question, and then we'll just keep checking in. And as soon as he's here, we will make sure that we get him engaged and hear his words of wisdom. So we look forward to it. Not a problem at all. So we'll move on to the next question for the panel. We just talked about a lot of the economic aid and capital assistance, but what other types of government support efforts, either via the SBA, our resource partners, our small business development centers, our women's business centers, perhaps even one of our SCORE chapters or veterans business outreach centers, other agencies, and really other small business community organizations in general that have helped you during COVID-19. We realize we can't do it all together, and our local communities are just so critical. So why don't we start with you, Diana?
Well, actually, I always start with the SBA's office. So I contacted the West Virginia District local office because they have been a great informational resource for us. So anytime I'm unsure of anything, I kind of go to them first. And so with that, I was able to get really constant communication with them about the changes that were going on with the PPP, that, as it was navigating through the different changes, that they helped us understand that. They actually put on a lot of webinars about that. They had Q&A sessions, so you could kind of ask any questions about the loans and about business in itself. So we used that a lot to help us navigate during these rough times. And then on top of that, we did reach out to the local SBDC, and they made us aware of actually a training grant that we applied for to help during these times when a lot of people were working from home and they had time to do more training. So we were able to receive that training grant, and so we actually developed an online training course for our employees while they were working from home and to help with their professional development. So there was a couple things that helped us as far as, number one, with SBA, just being that go-to resource, and then, of course, the SBDC that is in support of the SBA program and good resource partner. So that worked for us.
That's great. I mean, like we're doing today, is that pivot, right? That entrepreneur that can pivot and being able to provide that professional development virtually. That's a great example of how businesses have had to make adjustments in the way that they support their businesses and their clients and their employees. Tim, what about you?
Yeah, so during the pandemic, we really used a lot of different SBA resources, more from a informational type compliance perspective, to make sure, as a small business, all the different rules and regulations that was coming out and that was changing, we've stayed abreast of those. So, PTAC, SBDC, and one of the most critical ones for us is having, really, really good working relationships with a lot of the small business directors out there that support the SBA and different things like that. That was very, very critical for us to make sure that, we were in compliance with the information that was coming out, because information was coming out, you guys know, pretty fast, pretty quick, and things were changing. And as a small business owner, you want to make sure that you have the right information so you can not only empower your business, but you can take care of your people on the ground.
That's right. Very good point. Necole.
I would piggyback on both of them and say, just starting with the SBA alone, the constant, they were a hub for constant communication as it related to the PPP loan, various sessions on the loan, how to fill out the application, repayment, resources for that, knowledge on next steps. They also assisted because stop work order was a new thing, force majeure, Mother Nature. And so the FAR clauses, understanding stop work orders and what they meant, even when the agencies weren't really sure what they meant, they were a big resource. The work from home and software resources or suggestions that they provided. And most importantly, the other two would be compliance and even around health insurance for employees. And so I would start with SBA, but we also were able to utilize SCORE, MBDA, and the Women Business Centers. And so we did a tiered approach with our team. And so because it was a constant flow of communication. I mean, I just felt like the internet went viral. It's like, well, what source should I go to first, or, you know, what source is accurate, because information would change every day. SBA did an excellent job with keeping up with that. And so again, they were a constant communication hub, and we set up as teams. I would have my project director, you know, connected with SBA, someone else connected with MBDA, and someone else connected with SCORE. And as we were working from home, we would have internal meetings to consolidate and collect that information to get it out to our staff.
That's great, Necole. You know, we have 10 regional offices and 68 district offices across the country that are really there to really be that recovery, customer support, resilient center for our small businesses. Just being there and having that connection has just been so beneficial to helping our small business community. So it's awesome to actually hear that a lot of our small businesses were able to engage and connect with us. Tisa, what about you?
So I, in turn, you know, on the dovetail of what you just said, Victor, I have leveraged quite a few of the SBDC centers. Whenever I look to expand into a new area, I would tap into that local SBDC. When I was looking to get into the district, I in turn signed up to be a client to get resources and navigation as it related to government contracting in the district. When I went into Baltimore, similarly, I went into that SBDC office to understand how to navigate the terrain in the Baltimore area. I've also leveraged the women business centers. Those are very unique to being a woman, particularly in a male-dominant space. And so resources that were available, I've also have been able to take advantage of SCORE in the District of Columbia, where I had to have my financials looked at for a major pivot that I was doing some time ago. And so it was very, very helpful to have resources brought in that were in my industry to take a look at where we could trim, where we had to shift to be aligned with the industry. And it came from those SBA resources. I also, as I mentioned earlier, am a graduate of the Emerging Leaders Initiative program, and that was very, very wonderful to finally get to a place where I could look at my business strategically, because prior to that, I had been so in the weeds and could not set necessarily the vision for my business. So going through that Emerging Leaders program helped me get out of the business and focus on the business and where the business was headed. Even from a giving back perspective, I am currently a CARES-funded contracted SBD consultant in Maryland in the Southern region. So assisting other business with the things that I've learned over the course of running mine.
That's awesome. You mentioned Emerging Leaders. That is our, intensive entrepreneurship education program that's delivered across the country. And the good news is we're actually going to have a virtual cohort this year, and we are starting registration now. And I think there'll be some additional information later on. But it's an awesome opportunity for business owners, the CEOs, the C-suite, whether you're a sole proprietor with a couple of employees, or whether or not you have a much larger business. It's a great educational program that we deliver at the SBA that we really want to make sure small businesses take advantage of, much like Tisa just mentioned. Let's do one more quick check before we go to the next question and see if we were able to get Congressman Evans on board with us. Congressman, are you available?
Yes. How are you? How you doing?
I am doing well, sir. Thank you so much for taking time to join us. We are honored. Happy Black History Month, and I will turn the floor over to you, sir.
Thank you very much. You couldn't be more honored than I to just listen to these stories from these entrepreneurs. These entrepreneurs are the true heroes of Black history by demonstrating what they do every single day and making a difference in this country. I thank them and I congratulate them. And I know it is tough, and I know sometimes there are setbacks, but it is the grit and the resilient aspect of what I've heard. I've listened to these stories, and I think it's important to understand that when it's all said and done, it is Black businesses that make a great deal in this country. And what I try to do on my role, being on small business committee, is I listen to them and attempt to do the things they need to do in terms of availability of capital and work with the Small Business Administration, work with them together. It takes this kind of effort. Look, this pandemic is not the fault of any individual here on this panel, but it is our responsibility now, working with the Biden-Harris administration and working in partnership and having an administration that is sensitive to people of color. That is very, very important. So my role is to be a champion in any way I can, and particularly on this very significant month of Black History Month. For all those, John Lewis, the late John Lewis, used to always say, and I learned when I met him first, and he said to all of us, if you see something, do something. If you see something, do something. Well, that's what I feel like my role is on the Small Business Committee, working with the SBA, to work together to try to make sure there's success stories and that you get all the support and help you need. So again, I'm listening to your stories, and I congratulate you and thank you for what you're doing.
Wow, thank you so much, Congressman. We're so glad you were here to join us, and thank you for those words of encouragement. We certainly appreciate all the work that you're also doing on the Small Business Committee and what you continue to do to support small businesses across the country. It's absolutely awesome to have you join us this afternoon. So with panel, we're going to jump to the next question, and actually was something that the Congressman just talked about, in terms of the White House and new initiatives and what the White House is doing to level that playing field for small businesses, particularly for our emerging markets and for Black and Brown communities. And so you've heard about the new initiatives in terms of the PPP reform that was just announced earlier this week, where we're looking at finding those businesses that need the help the most, those businesses with less than 20 employees, and giving them an opportunity to make sure that those applications run through. We're looking at special initiatives that are now being put in place for our sole proprietors and self-employed folks. And so it's really a great time for our small businesses to leverage these resources that are becoming available, so we can continue to enhance that toolkit for our small businesses to succeed and continue to level that playing field. And that kind of leads us to our next question, which is one of the things that we really have to continue to take advantage of and educate our community about. And that's the fact that the SBA has used the nation's community financial institution network, which is more known to cater to underserved markets, to promote access to capital, especially, again, with that latest round of the Paycheck Protection Program. Along with this effort, what other suggestions would you have for Black-owned small businesses to establish a solid relationship with the lender? And Diana, why don't we start with you? Okay,
sure. So one of the things I kind of believe that we need to do as leaders in the small business world is to be that extra support to other small businesses that may need a hand. So what I've done, especially during this COVID, is I've actually leveraged my relationship with banks to introduce them to other small businesses to see if they would give them that type of banking relationship. So that's one thing. And the other thing I think that would be very helpful is if these companies could look at being maybe proactive and not wait until they actually need the money sometimes. If you establish that relationship in advance, so you have the money whenever you need it to be available. And the other thing that we've done as we've learned, have lessons learned throughout the years, is that you don't want to just put all your eggs in one basket. You want to really have a relationship with more than one bank. So right now we have a relationship with a couple banks, and it's worked out very well for us. And the last thing I would say to do is anytime that there's somebody that's really wanting to have a relationship with a bank, I've found that SBA actually keeps a nice list of those banks that are, I call it small business friendly. And I've actually referred people to them, and they've had good success with that. So those are my hints and tips that I would suggest in the future if somebody's looking to do that.
Fantastic, Diana, and you're absolutely right. Your district offices across the country, we are able to direct you to different types of lending institutions that are actively participating in SBA programs. It's so critical that you look for those types of lending institutions that are really want to engage with your type of business, with the type of money and the type of capital that you need. And the good news is, we have credit unions, we have, again, those community financial institutions that are involved with it. And a lot of the smaller community banks that you may not see a lot of branches everywhere, but they're actively engaged in the small business community. So absolutely, as Diana said, I encourage you to connect with your district office. Tisa, I saw you nodding your head. Anything you wanted to add?
So I echo exactly what Diane said, having multiple relationships with multiple lenders. And it was so beneficial when Paycheck Protection Program was rolled out because one of them really hopped on. The other two were not quite ready for prime time since the rules were just ever moving. But one of them were ready and actually even texted me on Sunday night to say, our portal's going to be open in the morning. Are you ready? So having that relationship makes all the difference when you need access to capital. And, we've noticed, again, as a board chair to the Chamber of Commerce in Prince George's, we've noticed that a lot of our smaller businesses don't necessarily have those relationships. So we've done a lot to partner with SBA. Our district director here in the district gave us some good leads and resources to the CDFIs that were here and the smaller community banks that were here, and we were able to connect them to a lot of these emerging businesses. And particularly right now with this reform of PPP, they're actually able to tap into those community banks and CDFIs that can give them what they need to get those loans and those very needed funds.
Absolutely. Necole, anything to add to that?
Yes, I just want to encourage all that are on the phone because we as panelists are on the phone and, I always say new levels, new devils. And for me, starting out, I'll just tell a quick story about starting out, and relationships are key. I'm going to echo what everybody said about relationships. But when I started out my business and I was applying for the 8A certification under SBA, I had started my business bank account with $0 in there for 2 to 3 years, but developed a relationship with a small community credit union, which was NASA Federal Credit Union. A lot of the bigger banks at the time were not interested in my company. And so in developing that relationship, I identified the board of directors, who they were, how that bank operated. And every time I got paid from a contract, I would put more in. And I started off with a small loan, a $5,000 line of credit that, later built up to $1 million line of credit, to being able to have the relationship and get the PPP loan, as well as working with other banks. I would definitely recommend starting small, even if you don't have a lot of contracts. Put the money in, develop the relationship, keep the bank informed of the type of contracts that you have, what's in your pipeline. I think that's very important. They know what you're working towards, as well as building the relationships with the credit union as well as a regular bank, because their rules are different and you don't know which one is going to connect with you or partner with you first. So I think that is important.
Yeah, you touched on something, Necole, that's really important. And it's a great thing about SBA's loan programs outside of our COVID, programs that are available, are what I call now our traditional loan programs, whether it's a micro loan, where you're getting a much smaller amount, our Community Advantage program, or if you're looking for capital equipment and you move to our 504 program. So regardless of where you are in that journey of your business and the type of capital you need, we can meet you where you are. And that's the important part, so if you need to start small and start to build your business credit, their micro loan program is there for you, or even maybe our Community Advantage program. So you're spot on in terms of engaging with different lenders and with different types of loan programs to meet your needs. Tim, anything that you wanted to add, by the way?
Yeah, so I would echo exactly what everybody's saying, right? And then a couple of things I add is, you know, don't take no as a failure, right? Because you have to start small. I started small and always took no as an opportunity to figure out what I needed to fix, and I went back. And you just keep going back to the well, right? Because like you said, the SBA have a lot of amazing different vehicles, a lot of amazing resources in there to help. But you also have to, what I like to say, there's a right way to do it, right? So what I learned is education is very, very key, very, very important to understand, the different loans that the SBA have, and then collaborate with the SBA to make sure that you can submit the right way, right? The other key I think is very, very critical that I've been hearing is, as a entrepreneur and as a business owner, you have to make sure your personal credit is top notch as well, because that's going to be able to help you open up doors. Because like for me, when I started my business, I had to use, a lot of my own, I was able to get loans for myself that I was able to then put in my business name. But it started out as, Tim, you don't really have much from a company perspective yet. And so, you have, entrepreneur, like you're talking about today, we're resilient, right? We look at different ways. And that allowed me now to have, $1 million line of credit, but it took time to get there, right? And then what I always share with people is your banker should probably be your second call after you're talking to a customer, because you have to build a relationship with your banker and you have to tell them your story. Like the panel was sharing, you got to tell them what's in your pipeline. They got to know what you're going after. They got to know all these different type things, because just because you need it tomorrow, the bank is not going to turn around and give it to you. But if you've been telling them that story, you've been sharing that it's coming X, Y, and Z, when the time frame comes, they're going to be able to help you, right? So that's been very, very key for me, and how I've been able to build relationship with my bankers. And then, like everybody's saying, communication, and then having multiple irons in the fire, to where, some banks are different than others, and some is going to help you or come to the table a lot faster than others. So we've been very blessed in that way. But I think, very, very key is having a really good relationship with your banker and sharing with them, what you're doing as a business, how you're trying to grow, what does that look like, what's in your pipeline, so they can help you identify what that's going to look like to be able to get you a loan.
You're absolutely, again, spot on, all of you, as usual. I often say it's turning that no N-O to no K-N-O-W, knowing what you need and knowing, what programs are available. And like you said, Tim, if you're looking to expand your business or what's on the horizon. And again, SBA, if you're looking to start to export, for example, we have an Office of International Trade, and we have 3 loan programs that are, specific to exporting. And so the opportunities are great, and particularly in this environment, where we've now gone virtual, and you can now leverage e-commerce to really expand your market and your business. That's just absolutely critical to moving to the next step. I want to be cognizant of our time, so I'm gonna adjust the questions just a little bit, just to make sure we get some key points out there for our folks. Tell everyone a little bit about what you've tapped into or developed as a pivot plan that is assisting you to navigate the challenges brought on by significant social and economic change. Can you all kind of share a little bit, and maybe Tisa, we'll start with you, what you've done to kind of in that pivot environment?
Ooh, that's a good one, Victor, because I think we're still pivoting.
This is true.
We're still pivoting. I'm quick to say, an entrepreneur is a true hustler. We're always looking at other ways to improve, evolve, and expand. And, when the pandemic first hit, I'm an essential business being in construction, but I was halted because most of my funding is government funding. And so when things were shut down, so was the government being shut down. And so, it had me look at how can I serve my client better? How can I do it remotely? What other things do they need? And it's really pivoting in a way where I'm looking around the corner, trying to anticipate my client. So, during this time, knowing that there were going to be some economic impact to the underserved communities, which I normally am serving the government in regards to my construction projects. But I looked at now, how else are those agencies shifting to provide support? What funding is coming down through the stimulus package? And again, looking around that corner, trying to anticipate what's coming. And so been able to do a lot of consulting, been able to do a lot of virtual program management, to stand up programs to help a lot of those underserved and underrepresented communities get access to programming, retooling, and helping those agencies get their mission out, working remotely themselves. And so I think that's the biggest thing. And like I said, I'm currently still pivoting, because it's literally as the direction of our nation moves, which then drives where our states are going, that then drives where our locals, governments are going at the need of supporting our people here in America. That's what we do. We transform communities through social impact. And so it's trying to figure out and staying ahead of how can I support my clients effectively while being safe and keeping my employees safe, but still address those major concerns that our communities are facing.
Awesome point. Diana, what about you? Anything you wanted to add to that?
Well, I do, because what we looked at is so much out of adversity comes opportunity. And so we wanted to be relevant and a resource to the clients that we served. So in anticipation of the clients needing COVID cleaning whenever there was a COVID case or a potential case, that we actually shifted part of our cleaning program and offered to our clients COVID cleaning and sanitization, so that it would allow them to be able to enter their workspace again and feel comfortable in the workspace whenever there is a possible COVID employee that was close to them. And so whenever our sales went down in some of the other areas, because we were trying to anticipate and thought of another way to keep our revenues going, this helped us a lot during that time. And so I agree with Tisa that you've got to be very forward thinking whenever it comes to ways to innovate and to make sure that your customer is being served. And so it allowed us to pivot a little bit, maintain our revenues. And the other thing was that we had some additional costs that we had to adjust to, and that was like buying the laptops, making sure all of our employees had the PPE, buying hotspots, and to make sure we had constant contact with our customers, and also being able to stay in contact with our employees through the whole time during this whole pandemic. So we've done on both sides. We've looked at it, and we feel very blessed to have the clients that we have, and to be a nice resource for them, and at the same time protecting our employees while they do work for our customers.
That's awesome. Necole, anything you wanted to add?
Yes, I think the biggest thing for us, this is, adapting to the new way of living, and echoing what Tisa said on the pivot. We're going to be pivoting for some time now, because you wake up every day and there's a new regulation with CDC, or there's a new way of going to work, whether it's at home or it's actually going directly to the job site. And so for us, I think it was two key things. That was that technology shift, and that was the technology shift at the company level. We have two types of employees here. We have professional services, architects, engineers, construction managers, and project managers. And then we have a labor pool on the facilities and logistics integration side, where those people continue to stay at work and report to work. So in that technology shift where they weren't as technologically savvy, we had to adjust there with them to help get them there, to be able to communicate with them, and then communicating with the client, because they were also pivoting and shifting and trying to understand what that meant for them from a working approach. And so that was, hey, let's look at our contract, let's look at the 4 services that we provide, and how do we pivot those services while still staying in our lane, not necessarily creating anything new, but adapting to the change of COVID and helping that client as well so that we could keep those contracts going, keep the client going as well. And so those were the big things for us. Great.
Tim, I think we got time for one last comment from you.
Okay, yeah, and so I would just echo what everybody's saying, and one thing that we did was we were very blessed because we're in the IT and in the healthcare verticals, right? And so we like I said, we were very, very, very blessed because we market our capabilities of, you know, if you're here, we need you, and from the healthcare side, we got a lot of new opportunities, and then you know, we were just like everybody else. We were very blessed.
That is awesome. Well, you know, thank you to our panelists. You all have been absolutely phenomenal. We are so proud and so honored to have you join us today, and just thank you for what you're doing. You continue to be the pillars of the community, and the work that you're doing in helping our community and driving our economy forward is just so essential right now. So we just applaud and thank you for joining us today and for what you do. Congressman Evans, thank you for taking time out of your busy schedule to join us. We are certainly honored to have you with us, and was glad to hear your words of wisdom. That concludes our event, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you again for taking the time to join the SBA in our Black History Month celebration.
Thank you, Victor. Thank you for joining us today, celebrating Black History Month and our panelists sharing their success in small business. We encourage you to visit www.sba.gov to develop and grow your business. You can email questions for today's event to blackhistorymonth@sba.gov. Thank you for attending.